So we actually broke the sort of habitat paddock tree thing into three, I guess, key parts of the landscape. So there was paddock trees in the open farm country. There was then, I guess, the connections along riparian areas, particularly in the lower country, but then also the ridgetop forest country as well. So our group focused on the riverine and ridgeline country, where there's quite different issues. I guess with in terms of what's being done at the moment, there has been some focus on riverine work already. It's recognised that they're important wildlife corridors, refuges, and there has been some work done already in terms of promoting natural regeneration and also putting shrubs and things back into that riparian area. One of the issues we identified was that generally in those areas you may get eucalypts like red gums coming back up naturally, but generally your shrubs and casuarinas, which are more palatable, are generally out of the system, so they need to sort of come back into that system to provide habitat complexity, particularly for small birds. In terms of what should be done in riverine, we were discussing what sort of fencing strategies do we come up with, because there's always an issue of cost, fencing type, and things like areas where it's flood prone, so you're going to lose fences. So is there an alternative to just fencing off and reducing grazing pressure in riparian areas? There's also the issue, of course, of water access for stock as well. So that's one of the things that needs to be considered with riparian restoration work. What's this one here? Controlling carp and willows came up as well as something that should be done in riparian/riverine areas. Then focusing on the ridgeline work, I guess it's a bit of an unknown. I mean, we know they're important in terms of that they're an existing connection in the landscape, but there's a whole range of potential management issues, including fire management, so lack of access to actually get on top of the wildfire. Are there issues about lack of fire in those ridge tops? There could be. Issues around feral animals, particularly pigs, but in some areas potentially goats and deer as well, and also weeds. So the main issue there is we should be looking into improving access to those ridgeline areas to do those management works for those threats, and also investigating, I guess, the costs and benefits of doing burns, whether it's for ecological reasons, cultural reasons, or as asset protection, grazing country and assets in the farm country lower down. So I guess we're proposing that it would be good to do some sort of investigation into that, which would include measuring particularly sort of biodiversity benefits that come out of doing those burns. What else? Yeah, I guess in terms of in the ridgeline area in particular, there is some weed control going on, but I guess what we sort of said should be focused on is control, particularly into blackberries, and looking into biocontrol methods to achieve that. And the last one in the could-do category was to look at better management strategies for managing water runoff from roads. That was one that was raised quite a few times as well.
At the moment, there's shooting, trapping, baiting, dogging goes on. Integrated regional control programs really aren't off the ground yet, they should be. They should do. We've got enforce current laws, apply fines for people transporting pigs, more accountability by government departments, get the pig-specific poison bait, sodium nitrite up and running ASAP, maybe put a bounty on them. Biological control, that's a difficult one. Pig drives, another hard one to coordinate. Could do's, what else have we got? Game shoots, archery, tasty baits, irresistible. Pet food market, should be a market there. Game meat market, a bit more restricted. Introduce panthers, productive pigs, or the big bad wolf, whatever will kill a pig. Remote shooting via gun-loaded Xbox drones.
Not as far-fetched as it sounds.
No. Anyway, that's good.
We did say for the people go hunting, they bait, they trap, they maintain their fences, they get their animals inoculated against diseases, they locate and strengthen the entry parts and points of the fence. For what they should do, they should not, which I just added, should not feed the wild animals, which will attract them back to their properties. They should not dump any cats around anywhere. They should just, if they don't want them, they shouldn't have had them in the first place. People should maintain fences. If you have any vegetable gardens or anything, keep them like fenced so the rabbits and that can't get in. Secure poultry cages. You should electrify your fences. That's also a could. Keep grass trim in the yard tidy and no places where they can hide or anything. And for the could do's, you could use sensor lights to keep foxes away. For fun, you could go ferreting or pig hunting or something. And you could also get guard dogs or something like that. And that's all we've really come up with so far.
Very good.
Pigs.
Traditional burning, but it's got a little bit broader.
Yeah, all right.
So at the moment we're doing consultation, we have one traditional burning site in the K2W area, and there's also river dreaming canoe trips currently going on with the Aboriginal perspective. Now we've broadened our doing because we feel it's not a should do, we believe it's a will do. That's how we're doing it. And this is the range of projects that we've actually basically come up with a whole series of events for around the traditional burning concept. So
it depends how much money Gary's got.
Yep, based on budget. So we want to mapping cultural values for shared learning as identification and assessment of the sites. We want to do a workshop on Aboriginal cultural philosophy for the farming community to understand Aboriginal cultural heritage as well as impact, like legal obligations, land management practices, a whole stack of other things, and Larry's going to jump in every time if I can get him in there. So we're also looking at doing, as part of that, to do case studies for farmers to showcase what they're doing working with Aboriginal community to protect the cultural assets on farm, because we've got a range of farmers in the catchment already doing that. One-day workshops with farmers on that, and we're thinking of going through the Landcare groups because there's already been an expression by quite a few Landcare groups wanting to run those events. Larry is wanting to develop a traditional ecological knowledge calendar, and we're going to do a template so we can actually broaden that out across the catchment or across the whole region. We've also got established more traditional burning sites in the K2W area. Small group visits to reconnect with significant cultural sites, whether that's school, children, or just a small adult groups, we'll see. Traditional astronomy groups. The bigger one was K2W Astronomy Tour, which is an overnight trip, which includes canoe trip, traditional ecological knowledge, and traditional burning and the astronomy. And an offshoot from the astronomy tour is a traditional astronomy school workshop. And we're looking at putting in a much bigger project to encompass all of that stuff. So yeah. The should do was document farmers' rights in respect to cultural assets and opportunities to collaborate for preservation and shared learning. And the could do is expand to the rest of the K2W further afield.
Excellent.
We think we know what the goals for paddock trees are, but we have actually identified several areas that we need to sort of look at and describing where they need to go, the spacing, what species, etc. needs to be done. Looking at, say, positioning nest boxes to sort of complement hollows in trees needs to be investigated. Looking at fencing alternatives as well needs to be considered, what's appropriate for, say, clusters or individual trees, etc. And also looking at retention of fallen limbs underneath paddock trees as being an important part of that as well. We're looking at also, say, education on suitable grazing regimes too around paddock trees, what's sort of suitable to sort of help, say, natural regeneration around paddock trees, or to sort of allow the planting work to sort of survive, etc. And then there is also the possibility of looking at an inventory of hollows in trees, and also looking, say, at genetic diversity across the landscape of paddock trees, and that would actually help then decide which trees would actually go where. So basically a lot of it actually relates to getting the information about the value of paddock trees and the long-term goals of actually having them in the landscape. Do I cover that? Okay.
And large impacts. Small block holders, especially absentee. Tenure change, subdivision of larger properties. Loss of condition and structure in native vegetation. Loss of mature paddock trees. Weeds, subdivision, water turbidity, which we shifted to there. Altered flows, loss of chain of ponds, wetlands, water temperature 1. Subdivision, small blocks, absentee owners, fire, ferals, weeds. Loss of paddock trees, death of older paddock trees, grazing pressure on new growth, creek, river bank deterioration, significant increase in weed species, St John's wort, serrated tussock, increase in feral animals, pigs, cats, and native. Is that overabundance? I think. So, again, some common themes coming through. We shifted the pigs to there. We've got quite a few weeds in there. We've got quite a bit of subdivision. And the paddock trees.
You've got subdivision also in the large
I'll move it
change, small impact graph. Yeah.
We do too.
Yeah.
Okay. So a debated one. Are there any comments about it? Are people seeing that there can be two different perspectives, or?